acknowledgement from a person may intend to do, but the real questions in how they say things. So I will try to play that video at the end if there's time. So when we think about land acknowledgements in Canada, even though this is a meme that I found on the internet that basically shows how the government or people may feel that they are paying appropriate attention to the history of the relationship of Indigenous people with the land. But in reality, this is how the bigger part of the picture is that it's only one part of who we are as Indigenous people, and not acting towards, abolishing colonialism or the recognition of colonialism and its impact in our societies can really, it's the overall big picture that we're really looking forward to working together to kind of address, and land acknowledgements is only one part of those. So the problem with land acknowledgements is a lot of people, as you may know, you've been at a meeting, you've been in class, you've been, even on a Zoom, and out of respect for an Indigenous person that may be attending, or just appropriate practices, an individual may give a land acknowledgement, but you may have a comment from a peer or a colleague that say, well, no one's listening, or why do they do this? And a lot of organizations may have some apprehension in saying, well, we don't know how to correctly do it, so should we even try to do it? So I'm hoping that this talk can provide some insight for you today. A lot of the times, it's a reciting or automated habit. So when we think of, singing our national anthem, how many of us really listen to the words and just sing along, as opposed to really thinking about what we're saying and the message we're delivering? People do have incorrect issues with mispronunciation or referencing inappropriately the region that they're on. So again, just because you have a land acknowledgement in your region, dependent on where you're working today, doesn't mean it's going to be applicable in other areas. And a lot of people, for me, even I'm not truly recognized with my physical appearance as an Indigenous person, but the
Patricia, I'm not sure, but we seem to have lost you. Aaron, any sense of what's happened there?
Okay, can you hear me now? I hope everyone can hear me. I do apologize for that. Can someone acknowledge if they can hear me?
We hear you. That's great. Thanks.
Great. Okay. Yes. Okay. All right. So there may have been a part where I did not come clear there. But again, we do land acknowledgements to bring awareness to the truth and the events of the past. So that's truly important to understand the events of the past, and that's why some of my discussions earlier today may have influenced that. You want to foster the relationship between Canadians and First Nations, as well as Inuit and Métis people. And again, this is why you need to recognize that an Indigenous person does not just reside in one area of Canada, that land acknowledgements are applicable from coast to coast. Yes. And as an Indigenous person, and as a person who may have been affected by colonialism, hearing a land acknowledgement really helps have some strength in moving forward about our relationship with the land, so it will continue to sustain us and be important for those who come after us. And this is a simple act towards the ongoing work of reconciliation, which can be a challenge for many people. Okay, any comments or questions before we move on? Okay, I apologize if this is a little bit one-sided or didactic, but I think it's something that has to, I think, proceed best in this way. So just looking at this map, as you can see, this is a slide from the Government of Canada in 2015 that was adopted by the Encyclopedia Britannica, that shows the different Indigenous communities in Canada, although there's about 560 recognized nations in Canada. So the important thing about, giving a land acknowledgement is, although we as Indigenous people, it's a historical practice that we always acknowledge the land, even when we are visiting other areas in Canada, it's not always best practice to ask an Indigenous person to deliver the land acknowledgement. So I just like this little picture here because it shows you that even though you have a task list at the beginning of a discussion you may be leading, it's not something that should be simply viewed in this way. This is your own journey, and I'm really hoping that you can have some of the tools that you need from this talk to really help guide you with this. So in terms of the languages of a land acknowledgement, these are some standard sentences that you may hear. And again, it's a start, but it's never I guess the best practice that you should kind of stop achieving for. So a lot of the common ones that you will hear is this land belongs to, you know, I just want to acknowledge that if you're on a Zoom or virtual, I'm calling from this area. We are grateful to work and play. Again, these are simple ways to start off a land acknowledgement, but we're hoping that you can do even better with that. And just like I said before, there are over 650 different Indigenous groups in Canada. So again, the diversity of the Indigenous people is something that needs to be recognized in your land acknowledgements and should be adaptable depending on where you travel in Canada for any personal or academic related activities. So this is a great website. It's called nativeland.ca. And I do have a picture following this that really shows what's going on with that. But it's important to kind of just take some time. And the thing I love about this website is it shows all of the world. So if you're traveling to different areas of the world and you want to find out what other Indigenous communities may have preceded your interaction with the land, it's a great map and tool for people of all ages. You need to understand the Indigenous history with the land. So is there treaties? So again, even though here a lot of the Indigenous land acknowledgements involve the Haudenosaunee Mississaugas of the First Credit New Nation and the Anishinaabe people, there may be more than one group. So it's important to kind of be aware of that. You want to research current activities and actions against colonialism in a positive light and see whether you can comment on these interland acknowledgement depending on the geographic area that you are attending to. And if you have questions, you know, as an Indigenous person, I'm approached with lots of different questions, and I'm always happy to address these. But again, we just want to ensure that these land acknowledgements are coming from an area of respect. And so if you have challenges with pronunciation, asking an Indigenous individual or community organization for assistance is always a good way to go about this. This is a picture of that native land.ca. So as you can see, this is just of North America, and it allows you to zoom in to different areas that may apply depending on where your travels are taking you. So I encourage you to even go about, my daughters use this all the time to tell me about where our travels are taking us. So it's easily adaptable by children as well. So some other things that we need to recognize about the definition. So if you hear a land acknowledgement, you want to ensure that you understand what's being said. So when we hear the word traditional used in a land acknowledgement, this is simply how this land was traditionally used and occupied by Indigenous people. Ancestral is land that's handed down from generation to generation. And again, when we talk about this, we're usually referencing Indigenous people for this. A territory is the actual geographic area occupied by Indigenous people, and you may hear with unceded. This means that the land was never legally signed away. So again, this is a lot about, I guess, coercion about the relationship with Indigenous people and the government. When you do a land acknowledgement for wording, you really want to avoid the past tense. You want to recognize the continued impact of colonialism and Indigenous genocide. So again, just making a simple statement that you are aware of this is one step closer to making an appropriate land acknowledgement. The relationship to the land and your responsibility to it. This can be personalized in many different ways.
And I'm hoping you can hear me now. I flipped over to another microphone. the personal commitment for this,
uh,
and your
and your
responsibility
responsibility
to it.
to it can be altered in several different ways. So again, this is just something depending on where you're coming from and what type of goals you have for yourself in moving towards reconciliation. Again, the wording of a land acknowledgement, you want to avoid past tense. So again, colonialism, even though many people may think that Indigenous people should simply get over that, there's a big push to understand that we as Indigenous people continue to feel the impact of colonialism. So you don't want to think that colonialism is an event of the past that does not have an impact on the present. You need to recognize the events of this and how this has contributed to the continued Indigenous genocide, including our mental health and well-being, as well as our relationship with the land. You want to identify who you are and how this may place you in a place of privilege. So again, it's not about feeling guilt. It's not about expressing, the issues with any of your other generations that preceded you. It talks about your identity as a person and how these, in comparison to an Indigenous person, put you in a place of privilege in your relationship and use of the land. You need to understand the diversity of the Indigenous people in Canada, that, like I said, there's 650 different recognized Indigenous communities across Canada. And this is important to, acknowledge within your statement that you understand that we are not just one type of individual or group. And again, you can have your own statement about the purpose of the land acknowledgement, whether that's an action towards you in your journey for reconciliation, whether that's an action for you in terms of your efforts towards colonialism, or if you have a particular attribute of colonialism that you want to take on as yourself. And this includes the relationships with murdered and missing Indigenous women, anything with the residential school system or the health status of Indigenous people is always welcome in a land acknowledgement. So this is more for organization, as many of you may be involved in McMaster here in different types of roles. McMaster does have a standard land acknowledgement, that they do suggest is in our written documentation, emails, as well as communication. But I really encourage you to go beyond that. And if you're representing a certain sector of the McMaster organization, that you really characterize what your program may be doing in your land acknowledgement. So you need to understand how did you or your ancestors come to the land. So again, if you are from a colonialized organization, you need to understand that land belonged to the Indigenous people before that. What is your family's relationship to colonialism? So if you are a settler, if you're someone who was not educated properly on the strength of the Indigenous people, I think that's important to quantify as well. And the last thing is, what is your organization doing? And what does it need to start to be doing? And not that we want people to, go against the good motion forward of an organization, but it's always good to recognize, to challenge ourselves to do better. So when we think and reflect, this can be within your land acknowledgement, but it should also be done as an individual, is that we think of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action. So a land acknowledgement is not part of the calls to action. Orange Shirt Day, Truth and Reconciliation Day is part of the calls to action, but a land acknowledgement is a simple thing that you can do for reconciliation. And how do you as a person support Indigenous individuals and communities, whether that's through honoring specific events, acknowledging the history, welcoming the diversity, or working with these communities to battle against issues of the past, is important to kind of designate in your own goals, whether that be in your land acknowledgement or your own personal conversations. So like I said before, are there any specific acts of colonialism which apply to your own work or process? So I just listed a few there that you are welcome to include in your land acknowledgements. So not that land acknowledgements should be specific to who you are now as a person. They should constantly be in flux. But this is just an example of a land acknowledgement that I thought was simple, had a lot of merit to it, but did include all of those attributes that I did speak about earlier, which I think would be a good idea to kind of start to base the difference. So normal land acknowledgements or land acknowledgements that I hear a lot usually take about 8 seconds. This land acknowledgement takes about 28. So I think it's okay. And I think it's very respectful to the Indigenous ancestors that were here long before any of us to really take the time to acknowledge these types of statements in your land acknowledgement. And again, this is a video from the Calgary Public Library of an organizational land acknowledgement. I'm going to try to make it work. It did work last night, but it may not work today. And no, it does not work. So I'm going to try to log off and get these videos up during our discussion today, just so you can have a little bit of understanding where we're coming from in terms of the Barris Vaughan sketch about land acknowledgements and the proper delivering of a land acknowledgement. So the important thing is we are all related, and even though I'm an Indigenous person here today, we and my ancestors were here long before anybody came to our land today, known as Canada. We're all related now, so it's important for us in moving forward to really acknowledge the importance of land acknowledgements as a first step in your daily routine against colonialism and support of the Indigenous people. So, in summary, why is this acknowledgement happening? That's important to know. It's not just something you recite, it's something that you understand the importance of your words. How does this acknowledgement relate to the event or work you are doing? Again, this is important to understand that if you are traveling, if you're at a meeting, if you're on a Zoom, if you're gathering at different places across the country, that your acknowledgement should change depending on where you're located and what peoples were part of the land before you were there. What is the history of the territory? Again, a land acknowledgement is a verbal recollection, recollection of what you've been uncovering in developing a land acknowledgement. But this is your own personal chance to look at the history of the territory that you may reside on or work. And again, looking at the impacts of colonialism that currently continue to exist. What is your relationship? Again, identifying yourself as a settler, as a visitor, and how did you come to be here, looking at the generations before you? What are your intentions? And are you able to disrupt or dismantle colonialism beyond your territory acknowledgement? So rather than being 8 seconds, being 15 with a simple statement of support for Indigenous reconciliation. And a reminder that a land acknowledgement is a fluid process and should change with your own reconciliation efforts. So I'm just going to do a plug for an event that I have organized with the Indigenous Health Learning Lodge and the Michael G. DeGroote School of Medicine tomorrow. It is at Landmark Cinemas. So tomorrow, the university has recognized this as a day for no academic activity in recognition of September 30th, Truth and Reconciliation Day, or Orange Shirt Day. This is a free event for all. You just have to scan the QR code. We are watching the film Bones of Crows at 3 different locations throughout the region, one in Waterloo, one in St. Catharines, and one here in Hamilton. We will be having local Indigenous organizations present, as well as members of the Indigenous community, just to share in the message of this film. I've seen this film over the summer. It is extremely moving and does touch on a lot of the colonial history of the past. And for the donations, it is a free event, but we are requesting donations of diapers or menstrual products to be donated to our local service providers that are in great need now. So in closing, I thank you very much for listening to my talk. I am going to try to get this video on for to answer any brief questions, and Miigwech.
Many thanks, Patricia. Applauding at this end, and I'm sure in the room as well. I've already placed in the chat for those who are on Zoom the link, thanks to Natasha Johnson, who found the link for us for the Baroness Vaughan sketch video. And then also for nativeland.ca, and maybe we'll add some of the others that you referred to along the way. Patricia, are you able to answer questions? Are you still looking for the video?
No, I'm able to answer questions. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm just going to try to get this video loaded here. So I may be multitasking, but I'm happy to answer any questions or, address any comments in the chat.
So if I may, I mean, I don't know if there are in the room. Does Aaron, I see you walking. I'm going to start with my first question, if that's okay, and while others are getting settled. Patricia, first of all, thanks, because I think that was very moving and it's given me so much to think about. I'm curious about, when we're talking about how it affects our own work, and some of our discussions with the EDI-IR working group around what this could mean for a department that's so research heavy. And we've talked about in the past some examples of some of the history that we should take into consideration, but I wonder if there's anything from your own work or any thoughts that you've had about how a research intensive department should be thinking about land acknowledgement and our relationship to colonization.
Yeah, I think that that's a great question in terms of the adaptability of an organization's land acknowledgement. So I think it really should address the purpose of the organization on the Indigenous land. And though I'm grateful to do and conduct my own Indigenous research here, and I'm supported by, particular aspects of the apartment and allyship, a lot of people do not understand the trauma of research on Indigenous populations here in Canada, which have stemmed since the beginning of colonialism. So, that's another passionate topic of mine in terms of research, is that a lot of the time the research was conducted with coercion, without the standard, ethics that we apply to all Canadian populations now, which have been developed. But I think it's very important to understand that that can be incorporated into land acknowledgement here at HEI, in terms of the research process that we teach our students, uphold as faculty, is one that is aware of the past traumas of Indigenous people on conducting and reporting research, as well as respective of the current, OCAP principles and Tri-Council policy on ethics on conducting research with Indigenous individuals. So again, that probably took me maybe about 6 seconds to recite, I hope. So that's a simple statement that can be in any that can be in the introduction of any class here at HEI for our students.
Yeah, excellent. And certainly things that we've tried to integrate and worth remembering, and some of the case studies as well. I see Jennifer Walker has her hand up. So Jennifer, I think you probably would like to weigh in on this too. It's something you've been working hard on.
Well, not so much to weigh in, but thanks so much, Patricia. And I have a question. So my question is about, so sometimes when I've thought about land acknowledgements or been doing land acknowledgements or listening to them, there's often this, sometimes, there's rarely actually, but okay, how am I trying to say this? There's rarely an expectation that is going to result in action. And so I've been seeing more and more people saying that a land acknowledgement should include a concrete call to action. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that, and hoping that maybe we could have a bit of a dialogue in the department about the kinds of concrete actions that we, if that's something you think is a helpful part of a land acknowledgement, the kinds of concrete actions that we can offer as potential suggestions. Like sometimes I've seen people say, okay, acknowledging the nations here, and kind of like you just did, where you said, people are expected to bring menstrual products as a donation to attend the show. Like, are there places to donate to? Do we have maybe or something related to the Learning Lodge or something like that? I'm just curious about the action part.
Yeah, so I think the action part is going to be mitigated by the words that we deliver in the land acknowledgement. So I know myself, I agree with you, is that I'm always curious when people say actions. So, I give a shout out to my co-chairs for EDI at the MD program here. Their statements really set the tone for the meetings whenever they give a land acknowledgement, in the sense that they will not tolerate hate. They are aware of colonialism. And again, I think that action alone really provides people that attend the meeting, zero tolerance. So it doesn't have to be said. So in all the meetings that I've been in with them, it establishes a culture of safety within that meeting for me as an Indigenous person. And it just has a level of intolerance for anyone that may feel that they can say whatever they want, whether it's against Indigenous people or not. But I really like that action. And then I think if it's repetitive, not that it's repetitive, that it doesn't have meaning and the person behind it doesn't have merit, but I think these actions, if you mention a call to action in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's 94 calls to action, a specific one that, speaks to you, I think your actions are then educating someone or propelling someone to say, you know what, I don't know what that is. I'm going to go look that up. And then I think in behaviors here, within our land acknowledgements, really propelling forward that these Indigenous research methodologies are not an option, that they are supported by the environment, that students feel free, they can ask about them, that we're going to have people that are educated that can provide the support to our students if they want to engage in these types of methodologies. It's not easy. But I think if it's kind of in flux and it's a consistent messaging, and then you have people that do the actions outside of the land acknowledgement in creating a great environment, I think that's the key, in my opinion, for those action steps.
Thanks very much. I see there's, someone in the room. Go ahead.
Yeah, we have one question in the room here, and then I'm going to try to get the video working on my end here.
Yeah, that'd be great, Erin. Okay.
Hi, Trish. It's Bernice.
Oh, Bernice.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bernice Downey. I'm the Associate Dean Indigenous Health here in the Faculty of Health Science. And I came here to both support Trish and to also to hear her important perspectives on the land acknowledgement. So thank you, everyone in the room and for those online. So I had two comments. One about the research one. I was at another table this morning, and we were talking about the notion of epistemic trust, and in research. And, we talk a lot about Indigenous ways of knowing. And, there's a lot of dialogue to further define it, that there's a receptivity to it, but that, what is it? So there's like all these kind of subtle resistance to really co-creating space for Indigenous ways of knowing. And part of that to me, when I think about the land acknowledgement, is that we are beginning to recognize research that is done for and with Indigenous communities. But we often don't uphold those communities in the recognition of that research in academic spaces. So, for example, if I'm a non-Indigenous researcher doing research with an Indigenous community, I get the accolades because I'm the one that gets published with OCAP principles now. That is slowly beginning to change, but I seldom hear, Six Nations of the Grand River Territory contribute a major contribution to the understanding of children's mental health, as opposed to a non-Indigenous researcher who has gone in to work with good intentions and using OCAP principles. But I think we have a way to go in the spirit of understanding who's occupying the land, who are we doing that research with, and their role in creating change in the research world. So I just wanted to make that comment. And the second piece, I love the idea that you suggested, Jen, of land acknowledgements that aren't just tokenistic kind of statements in events, and that we do attach them to, who am I making the land acknowledgement? What is the area of work that I'm in? And how does that relate to the TRC calls to action? Is it education? Is it, you could attach the work that you do, you could align it with what's happening in the 94 calls to action. And an example of that is here in the university, of course, at McMaster, in our land acknowledgement, we refer to the 2 row wampum and the dish with 1 spoon, which are about relationship protocols. But today, as I was walking over here, I paused in front of the museum to read about the event that's happening tonight in Reconciliation Week. And as I passed the student center, there's a plaque out there about the origin of McMaster University. And what I read was that it had Baptist religious origins who originally funded McMaster. And when it moved from Toronto to Hamilton because citizens in Hamilton gave the land to McMaster. And so that's what flew off the plaque to me, was that in the midst of reconciliation and land acknowledgements, we have to also acknowledge the truth. Who gave the land to who? That's not what happened. And so we have to challenge, and that sign needs to be changed, right? And the other one that made it glaringly apparent to me was that the university has just engaged in a process to assess the lands that it's on, that it occupies, and in making a strategic plan about what they're going to do with the lands going forward, right? And so that kind of flies a bit in the face to me of the land acknowledgement that's said all the time, because who are really the stewards of the land that McMaster is on? And we recognize that every time we say the land acknowledgement, but aren't we the stewards who should be guiding that process, like in a leadership role? So I think we have to challenge not just how we say it, but how are we aligning our commitments, our aspirations, our work to support it and to walk the talk, I guess. So thank you very much, Trish. It was great. And I think Albina made a little correction on the website for native land. It's got a hyphen in it, which I discovered as well. So that's in the chat. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Bernice, and thank you, Albina, for I didn't use Chat GPT to do this talk, so I guess my autocorrect just did that. So I'm an old school person, but I agree with you definitely, Bernice. I think it's the pyramid here, McMaster, where we have a lot of decision makers at the top, but we are the ones that are supporting those decision makers in providing the activities and the strength and the bragging rights. So I really think if we make it a habit to really change land acknowledgements, and show them that it's feasible and it's just part of who we are, we really take down the limitations and the barriers out of their fear of change, which I think is quite common amongst a lot of decision makers that aren't educated about this. And I think in terms of students and faculty, if you are discussing any of your research, just like you would at a conference, you always want to say thank you to your team. And the first team that allows you to be here, that allows you to do the research, that opens up their trust to you, should be just part of who you are and how you acknowledge them. So I think it's a good process to abide by going forward. Erin, any luck in the video at all, please?
Yeah, I think we can give this a shot here and see if it works.
Okay, great. Thanks.
I'm not 100% sure if the sound will come through, but the subtitles hopefully will be there in any case.
Hello.
Come on.
Hello. First time.
All right, let's try this.
Hey, I will be my own stylist.
And
Thank you, YouTube.
sorry, I got on the wrong video. All right, one more time.
Hello. Hello. First, I'd like to remind everyone here to turn off your cell phones. Before we begin this evening's performance, we would like to acknowledge that this theater stands on territory of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat, and the Petun First Nations. We are also mindful of broken covenants and the need to make right with all our relations. And now, please enjoy the show. Oh, sorry, hello. Excuse me. Should we go? Excuse me? Oh no, I just mean if we're on someone else's land, shouldn't we leave? Oh, no. The theater is here now. We just like to acknowledge whose land it is. Sorry, I'm so confused. So if we're on someone else's land, shouldn't something about that? Or hopefully we'll enjoy the performance. Oh, okay, so some of the money from the ticket sales of the show are going to the Indigenous communities? Well, no. A portion of them? No, the ticket sales go to the theater. So is the money from the bottled water sold here going to the First Nations for clean drinking water? Or oh no, that money goes to Nestle. I'm so sorry. I'm so confused. So whose land are we on? What are we? what are we doing? It's a dialogue. How are we making right? Well, there's a plaque you can read in the lobby. I don't understand. I'm getting a message from the stage manager that we need to begin the show, so please take your seats, but have a good time. But good night. So sit down. Enjoy the show.
Thank you, Erin. Thank you for playing that video again. It was supposed to be part of my presentation here, but it really just shows, again, it's habitual, but when you truly question what's going on and the intention behind the land acknowledgement, even though, she may have had some, emphasis and passion in delivering it, the true meaning behind it does not reflect what it should be. So I really challenge you after this talk to really think about the land acknowledgement, be critical of the ones that you hear, and offer your own growth and adaptation to developing your own land acknowledgement. So thanks for doing that, Erin.
Are there further questions? I see, Madeline, you switched on your camera. I wasn't sure if you were, and Natasha too.
No, I just wanted to show solidarity and say hi.
Okay, thanks.
Likewise, just didn't want to be an anonymous gray box. Thank you for your talk, Patricia. It's been outstanding.
Much appreciated. I guess part of this had come up because we were talking about potentially developing a land acknowledgement for the department for HEI. And one that could be actually, placed somewhere visible, not necessarily as a performative gesture, as a plaque, but one that would, invigorate, I hope, conversation with our researchers, and also some, motivate some change from the perspective of the way we do our work and what we value, how we measure what we value, or in fact, like step away from the measurement and things like that. I guess I wonder whether or not that feels like it would be a reasonable thing to do and a useful thing to do, and how people would respond to it. But I also see Magdalena's hand is up, so I feel like I've taken up a lot of space. Magda, do you want to say a little something first before we respond?
Thanks, Lisa. I think my question is very simple, and thank you so much for this presentation. As a white settler, I try to do my best, and but it's kind of floundering there. And one question, there's plenty of questions that I could ask, but one, I travel quite a bit, and in order to be perhaps, maybe, and I usually, rather than giving a land acknowledgement of the place where I am, and I often visit UBC, I say that majority of my work is done here at McMaster, and then kind of provide the kind of more detailed description. So would you suggest that that strategy is not, I kind of feel I'm more comfortable doing that rather than trying to figure out exactly on whose lands. I leave that to the hosts of the meeting. So I just kind of was curious whether you felt that was copying out, or that I should make an effort to educate myself where I travel, or whether, kind of keeping this with McMaster when I present McMaster based work. So.
Yeah, I think it should be adaptable. If you didn't ask the question and you didn't acknowledge it in your own words as a cop out, that's the first step in saying it doesn't feel right. And if it doesn't feel right, something needs to be done about it. So I think for you, having the two merged together in a very dynamic land acknowledgement to say, a lot of my work and my academic pursuits are here, but I am presenting these here. So, having a little bit more of a lengthy, appropriate land acknowledgement should be well accepted by the organization or wherever you are presenting, whether it's at a conference. And I think the more people that do this, I think it will become the norm. So again, it's not about, it's about who you are and the resources of the land that provided the opportunities to make you who you are, and how you are going to other areas of the different parts of Canada or the land and using those resources to communicate in a different capacity that you need to recognize of the privilege of doing that on the area that you're going to. So I hope that kind of like, I know for myself, like I don't like, I mean, as an Indigenous person with every travel, you know, I do acknowledge the strength of the ancestors that, you know, resided on that land. But for you, I would do the same thing, is that you can merge those two and they should be adaptable. And I think it'd be a nice change to see when I go to these conferences, when I see people give land acknowledgements of that, of where they're from, but don't understand the contribution of the opportunity that the Indigenous people have provided for them to present that information, no matter where they may be. So I hope that addresses the question.
Thank you so much. Yes.
So with 5 minutes left to the
We
to
have
the
one
end of
more.
the-
At
one
least we
more.
have one more
Okay,
comment.
good. Thanks.
Hi, this is not really just a reflection. You know, this is Reconciliation Week, Indigenous Reconciliation Week, and I just wanted to comment on a disturbing trend, actually. You know, what we saw happening in Hamilton week before last with LGBTQ community and the protests that were happening across the country. You know, which, you know, our community here at McMaster really responded to, and with very strong statements decrying this behavior. And similarly, this week during Reconciliation Week, we've become aware of concerns from advocates in the community that these kinds of events could be the target of hate and discrimination as well. And driving into McMaster yesterday, I was listening to CBC, and I heard a story about a regional harm reduction program that was being planned. And the public debate included an individual who referenced the term wokeism in health. And my ears perked up at that, because that's the first time I've heard that. And to me, it was a scary signal that, you know, discriminatory, racist behavior is spilling into, and it's not that it was never there in health, but it's elevated it now to in a way that challenges the good work, the progress that we're making in terms of the topic today, for example. And so I just raised that as, you know, that's the conversation that we have to maintain around anti-Indigenous racism and and discrimination for other marginalized groups. So I know that's not directly related to your topic today, Trish, and I'm not looking for you to explain it all for us, but I just, I saw there was a couple of minutes, and I just wanted to raise that, you know, we didn't expect that to happen this Indigenous Reconciliation Week. So I think we all have to be cognizant. I appreciate folks coming on to support and solidarity, because it's a very disturbing events that are occurring. So be careful out there. And I think it's something that we have to turn our head to and have more conversation and very explicit intention about how we protest that in return. So I just wanted to make those comments. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Bernice. I think they're, you know, awareness comments that, you know, the challenges continue to build and come across in different realms with more evil and hate. And I think the cure for that is to increase our own awareness, to work together as communities, and to come together to stand to say, well, we'll not tolerate that behavior. So this is why I'm so touched at the amount of individuals that came to this Zoom today. You know, I just give a shout out to, sorry, Lisa, I'm going to shout you out because you just make my job in HEI just I just feel very supportive and safe. So I just wanted to publicly acknowledge you for that. Thank you so much for that. I really hope that a lot of you took away some strength from today's talk that you can really take forward in developing how you have to stand up with alongside us as Indigenous people in your public events speaking, including in land acknowledgements. So chi miigwech.
Thank you so much, Patricia. And for that very kind shout out. Very, very touched by that. Really, it's you who makes my work much easier. We have a small group of people who work on EDI and advancing EDI in the department, but Patricia, you've been without fail, always been there to be able to support and inform and push us in the gentlest ways to think differently. And I think today was a wonderful example of that, including the time that you've taken to prepare the talk and share this with us. This is going to be a valuable resource for members of the department, which we will post on our website. We got permission from Patricia in advance, so that it's something that you can return to and look at and think about, because these ideas are the kinds of ideas that I think we need to factor into how we make these acknowledgements. So for ongoing efforts from all of us to move the needle, to make things better, to bring that sense of belonging and safety and appreciation for where we are and the people that we're working with. Thank you very, very much. And thank everybody for attending and for your involvement today. We look forward to, there'll be in a few months' time another EDI IR rounds, and we'll look forward to further involvement. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Aaron, for making this possible too. That's great. Thanks so much.
Have a great rest of your day, everybody.
You too.
Okay, I'll just go ahead and shut down the room, Lisa. I don't think there's any, no one's staying on the chat. So, okay, thanks so much.
Great.
That was great. We had about 12 people, 12, 13 in here. So
In the space.
they're up
That's
to
good.
30 online. So that was encouraging.
Some of whom I recognize. Good to see you all there. Hi, bye-bye.
Yeah, the camera's over there. You gotta wave that way.
Yeah. Oh, lovely. I wish I could do that again. I'd get a picture. Thanks, you guys. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.